This conference will now be recorded.
Obviously participate in the presidential primaries for the political party of their choice. All right, so it is now 4:04 p.m. and I'm Mayor Heidi Franco. I want to welcome the other council members that are here. So we have with us council member, let me just check online. Nope, we're excusing council member Scott Phillips, it seems, but the others in attendance are council member Sid Ostergaard, Aaron Cheatwood, Yvonne Barney, Mike Johnston. And we also welcome all of our city staff and other consultants and help to the city. So our first action item today, everyone, is to discuss the updates for the Heber Valley corridor. Matt, I will turn this over to you, but let me also welcome Matt and Craig Hancock. Matt Parker and Craig Hancock, you're welcome to come forward and sit right up here. And Matt, we'll turn the time over to you, please.
Mayor, Council, thank you so very much. This particular agenda item stems from a discussion that we had at your last meeting concerning the Northfields and conservation easements before we know where UDOT's preferred alignment is going to be. Based on instruction I received from the City Council, I was asked to invite UDOT here today to kind of talk through some of the questions that you had last meeting. So let me introduce Craig Hancock, who is the corridor project manager, and Matt Parker, who is a big assist on this overall project. And they're here to share with you first some information that they brought with them. And then we thought we would go ahead and maybe address some of the questions we sent and just hear the conversation goes from there, if that's okay. Craig, take it away.
I've got those, but I can't share the screen. So first of all, just thank you for inviting us. I appreciate the request to come. I appreciate the questions that Matt sent. They helped us kind of hopefully frame the discussion tonight. Just on the outset, UDOT, we want to continue to work with the city and the community. That's why we're here. We want to be working with you and not against you. And so obviously the decision about conservation easements is a big decision. We can certainly talk through tonight UDOT's perspective. With that, maybe we just kind of walk through the questions and
okay. Actually, would you take this moment, Craig, and kind of walk through the map that you have on the screen there?
So what we have here, we created this map here that shows, that overlays all the alternatives over the first parcels that are being considered for conservation. There's a couple things to point out on this. That of course in the lower portion, all the alternatives get affected by at least a portion of those the parcels. Is that better? Can you hear me? Okay, thanks. And then there are a couple of the Northfield alternatives. Is it on? Oh. That better? Okay, sorry about that. And then of course there are some additional alternatives, the Northfield alternatives that get impacted by some additional parcels as we go north. So that hopefully this, I don't know if you've seen this graphic yet, but this one, at least for, is how we're looking at it.
Craig, can you also speak to the timeline of maybe publicly announcing what the preferred alignment might be?
I can, well, so we are unfortunately in a little bit of a holding pattern on this decision right now. As we were, as you know, we were getting close to releasing the draft purpose and need last year, as we were running and we were running through a sensitivity analysis. During the course of that analysis, MAG updated the travel demand model, which is the basis for all our alternative analyses and the assumptions that we made. That new model, as we started looking into it, and it's still, there's still some refinements that need to be made in that model, but from the initial new version of the model that we got, we found that there was more volume on North 40 than what we initially assumed from the previous model. It was significant enough that it could have it suggests that the three alternatives that run along North 40 would not meet purpose and need as we have it. And so obviously that's a big dilemma for us. It's a big concern. And so we felt it was important to pause for a minute and really understand what the new model is telling us and those assumptions. And it's likely that we're going to need to address the three alternatives that use the North 40 section, modify that with some additional, I don't want to say, we're not doing new alternatives, but we may need to modify what we're doing on North 40 and take a look at that to make sure that those alternatives now meet the purpose and need with the new model.
Is that based on the MIDA project and what was happening there? Because was that a part of your study and analysis?
I think it's a factor of several things. I think it's several factors that went into that. I think part of it is the MIDA and all the growth that's happening there in that segment. It's also some of the development that's happening within the city in the North 40 on the east side. Some of that new development. We saw in the new model that they had moved a lot of the some of the population into that zone that wasn't in the previous model. And so I think there's a number of factors, but those I think played into it. Yeah.
And is it such a significant increase, Craig and Matt, that we're talking a 25% increase in traffic volume, 30%, 50%? How significant is that, do you think?
Yeah. I don't have the percentages off the top of my head, but it was significant enough that it does require us to look at additional
Modifications.
Modifications, possibly additional capacity.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't a little amount. It was a significant amount.
Well, that means you'll be redrawing the lines then for those alternatives, right? As far as the width, perhaps, on North Highway 40?
Possibly. Right now, that's the stage we're at right now, is to try to figure out exactly what that means. We don't know what those improvements look like.
But that could also affect the sewer farm and the southern route.
It's not going to affect anything that's south or west of that North 40. We're not creating new alignments or adjusting any of those alignments. The only portion that we're talking about is that segment from about
900 north.
900 north up to 32, where our project is.
That's really interesting that it wouldn't affect the rest.
And it's because where we saw the increase in volume was in that segment. It wasn't in the other segments. It was just in this segment, and that's what and so it affects the overall performance of the entire alternatives. But the focus of the problem is in that North 40. So that's the segment that we need to address.
And I'm going to just try to tie a detail together. Russ, we know we only have one collector road going north-south in the NVAS that will go the entire distance, right? Just the one and a half. But what my point is that given what Mr. Hancock's saying about the volume of traffic on Highway 40 increasing, which of course would have something to do with the NVAS too, but maybe that one collector road from Coyote Lane Parkway up to River Road, or I should say State Route 32, maybe that needs to be widened on our master plan, given the volume of traffic that he's talking about on Highway 40. It's just something to consider. That's all. Please proceed.
So unfortunately, I don't have a date yet of when we plan to release the draft, because we need to look at these new modifications, and we're still trying to sort through that. I'm hoping to have a more definitive answer for you in the next coming weeks. As soon as we know what that is, we'll let you know.
Just for clarity, so of the original 5, for purposes of reporting or people that are listening and can't see that very well, of the original 5, the WA1 route, the WB1 route, and the WB2 route, which were the ones that curved around, went from 900 to 40, and then went north. All 3 of those, you're saying, based on the MAG projections, are potentially not viable options as they were presented on the EIS survey. So
those are the ones that get affected.
So follow-up questions then, how often does the MAG update happen? And the context of that question is, all of the time that I've seen these on the EIS website, everything that's planned on North 40 was planned already. It's not new. And so my concern here is what it has been the whole time I've lived here, which is that if we keep pushing it down the road, then data will continue to change and we will be left with fewer and fewer options as we go. So I'm just curious, do we need to look at the MAG data every single time? Does it update every 3 months? Does it update every couple of years? I mean,
Good question. Normally, and this happens quite often in these types of EIS studies, that the travel demand model changes and gets updated. Normally, what happens is that when we run the new model and compare to the old model, they match up. That we don't see a discrepancy in volumes to where we need to go back and reevaluate things. This was a surprise to us. This normally doesn't happen, but in this case, it came out, and it surprised us, and it surprised MAG as well. When we presented it to them, they were a little surprised, and we took some time to kind of dig into the model just to make sure, try to understand why, and to the best, as I explained earlier, it just shows in this case that the volumes would increase. So that's what happened.
the other part of the question was, how often does that update? It's like when you come back with something, okay, so there's not a particularly large risk of you coming back in September and them messing it up
We're hoping
again.
that we can finish. We believe we can get this done before the next MAG.
Before 3 years. Thank you.
I'll add that when they update them, the model, sometimes they find errors, and it's just kind of an iterative process until they feel like they have it correctly done. And sometimes it just takes a while. But yeah, it's about every 3 years.
Yeah, the context of the questions, of course, is that there's a lot of open space right now. As time goes on, more and more of that open space will be up for sale to somebody, whether it's to a conservation easement, whether it's to the county potentially, or whether it's to other people that start developing in other ways. So this gets harder and harder the longer we wait. And these conservation opportunities potentially don't come back to us if we wait.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Sure. I guess for me, similar to what Aaron said, I've been in the Valley for close to 40 years. And the discussion in the very beginning was always 1A, 1B, or B1, what is it, WA1, WB1, forever. That's where we have, it's been drawn that long. Then even at the beginning of all this discussion, it was always said that those would be the routes. And then we had a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, that's when the Northfields discussion came in. And it's been a push by the community. It's been a push by many. I know what my husband goes through. I'm constantly listening to him on the phone when we're trying to talk while he's driving to work and going up 40, and the frustration level is usually enough that I have to hang up. So obviously we have an issue, something that should have been done years and years ago. And we're at a point now where we need to make some decisions. But my concern has always been when we don't protect those north fields. It has been something that so many have been very passionate about. We have landowners. I'm looking at an email from one, two, three, four, five, six landowners in that area that are all saying the same thing. We don't want anything going through the middle of our beautiful fields. And now you're saying that your recommendation is that we would go through the North Fields? Is that?
The big message that I'd like to send tonight is allow us to finish the process. We have 5 alternatives. We want to study all 5 alternatives and make the best recommendation. And the big ask is we want to be able to finish the process, stay in the process, and until we can get to make that final decision. We are not eliminating any of the alternatives
Okay.
at this stage.
All right. And I guess the next thing then is the message that would be sent to our citizens that live in that area is we want you to wait. Unfortunately, that funding is not funding that can wait. We're not something that we can tell them, hey, 3 more years down the road, and if nothing happens in that area, you're more than welcome to. We're talking about federal dollars that are so difficult to get. And the fact that they're getting federal dollars to me says a lot. I'm just going to say for me is I shun at the discussion of trying to tell a landowner to give up on things. We had a big discussion for the last year and a half of a particularly large landowner that's coming in with a very large building and how much of a pushback we got from several members in the community. While I wanted to honor their concerns, the discussion always came back, well, you can't tell the landowner what to do. That's their property. They have a right to do what they need to. And then the entities involved, which in this case was the county, and in this case it will be the county as well. The entities involved have that discussion. They chose to go with the landowner. I feel that if we're going to say landowner, it should not be a $1 billion landowner. It should be at least a $2 million landowner and on down. When we are asking landowners to step aside, to stop from doing what they feel is best for their property and their land, that's where my concern comes in. So with that in mind, if there is a discussion where, maybe we don't have to go right smack dab down the middle of the North Fields, but we might have to cut into this lower south half where there's another discussion for easement protection. I'm hoping your answer will be, we're not going to have to condemn, but we're going to go to the table and talk. Or that those first 2 options, which have been on the table, or first 3 options, which have been on the table for ever and ever, don't get shoved to the side just because we're not going down the North Fields. Because for me, this is a discussion, even though it involves the whole valley, it is between 2 entities. That's the landowner and Wasatch County. And I feel that we don't really have, I know we have a stake at the table, but I'm not going to be the one to tell Wasatch County how they should handle this situation. And I'm definitely not going to be the one to tell this particular landowner, it's not worth taking care of, even though it's your land. We need to respect it on both sides of the table. So that's where I hope we can, if it's not what we want, I hope we're not away from the table. I hope we realize we can still have a good discussion. We can still make this work. It might just need to be in a little bit of a different direction, but the general plan is there and that we keep it going. We've waited too long. And I want it heard throughout TV land out there. I have never, ever been against having a bypass. I've always supported a bypass for years. But in this regard, I'm not going to push back on the landowner. We need to respect that. If we're going to do it for the $1 billion landowners, we should do it for the $2 million landowners and not down. So there you go.
Craig, that leads to a question that I sent you. The question goes like this. Could UDOT announce the preferred route around the west side of Heber before announcing any alignment in the North Fields, north of the city? Is it possible to break it up into 2 different projects and announce them at different times?
Well, in a sense, we at least when it comes to the west alternatives, all the alternatives follow a similar alignment. So
Mhm.
in that sense, we have, I mean, for all intents and purposes, that one's sort of set, right? We know it's going to be one of those 5 alternatives going around the west side of the city and connecting. So, that's course source that, it's not, we don't know which one of those 5, but we do know that it's going to be one of those 5. And so in that sense, it's sort of set.
Craig, is it possible that in addition to announcing maybe the west side separately from that part that goes to the North Fields, also build them at different times? Is that possible? Have you guys thought through that?
We would be releasing, we would have to release the alternatives as a whole.
Hmm.
We wouldn't want to break that up. I mean, once we make the announcement, it'll set the alternative.
Hmm.
And I think that all ties back to the purpose and need. How we took a long time to get that purpose and need set. Everything gets weighed against that. And if we determine, well, we're going to release this first part and it's going to end at Midway Lane or 113, then it doesn't really meet the purpose and need, because the need, explain how it needs to connect to a regional connectivity. So I don't know, it just, so that makes it a little more difficult, but yeah, like Craig said, it does pretty much know where it's gonna go on the south end. Because all the alternatives are pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think the greatest pressure is actually on the south end in terms of the pressure to develop, and any delay might risk having someone submit their building permit and wanting to go vertical. That's probably the greatest pressure we're having right now.
Do you mean coming off of Southern Highway 40, Matt, across to the Walmart
It's the area
intersection?
between 189 and Highway 40.
So
That's what I thought I was referring to.
the portion that's same for all the alternatives is really that connection from 1200 south along the west side, and then connecting over to US 40. So that's the portion I'm referring to. We do have some variations on the very south end between the alternatives, and of course we have the variations on the north. But that segment in the middle that is impacted by these conservation easements, they all.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, I mean, it's hard to see on this map. Maybe on that other one is a little bit easier, but with just a small alignment change at the bottom section of the Gertz properties where that white line is going through those couple of reds, theoretically, most of those conservation parcels we're talking about, you're saying, are not the ones that are potentially at a problem right now. They're not the ones that are causing a potential headache if those were things that the county went forward with.
Yeah, we did a little bit of analysis on that, and just kind of looked at the acreages that our alignments impact versus the acreage that's being considered here. There's approximately about 200 acres total, and depending on which alignment we're talking about, we're impacting between 4 and 15% of that. So the remaining 85% is, from our perspective, could be moved forward and put into conservation easement. But that 15% or so that's affecting our alternatives, we would like to see stay out of those are the alternatives that would impact us.
Yeah, and I appreciate that clarity. I mean, the reality is the question came up from somebody in the community to me a couple of weeks ago when we met, are you telling the county to stop trying to conserve the North Fields? And my message is, I don't want anybody to stop trying to conserve things, but I don't want them to purposely block an opportunity to have a bypass that makes good sense, right? So I think clarity from you and your team as far as which specific things are really the ones where you're planning on, it's like you said, it's in all 5 options. This one is an issue, that clarity will help, I think, the county to understand what they're doing. I mean, ultimately, it's not us making that decision anyway, but it will help to understand that, because my message is we want to conserve as much possible as we can, but we should think about a road that makes sense for us in the future. I am really hopeful it doesn't go through the middle of the North Fields. That's my preference. I am not a demand planner. This isn't my area of specialty, but gosh, I'd love to have it not go through there. But in the meantime, we have a landowner that's looking to do something and trying to make sure that it stays beautiful and stays conserved. And um, I think clarity from your team as far as exactly which ones are at issue would be very helpful to the county, because I'm not sure that or even the other map we saw just a second ago with those laid on top of each other. I'd never seen that map before today.
I'm happy to describe the exact parcels that are concerning to us. That would be helpful.
Tony,
Can
can you
back to
get us
that?
back to the real map?
Yeah,
not
I think it's helpful. Ultimately, it's not
when they brought,
us, right? I mean, frankly.
That they brought, we don't have it in our package.
And this previous map that I showed you is one we've shared, not that one, but sorry.
Yeah, because I've never seen that before today.
This is one we shared this with the county a couple weeks ago.
What was
But
that?
it's the 4 parcels on the south end, and the parcels that run on the through the Northfield alternatives. So it's I can't read the numbers there, but I can read them off my list here. You're
And I can see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the 4 on the bottom with the blue and the red,
On the bottom.
pretty sure those are that's the route. The top ones we're talking about still.
So on the bottom you have parcel 76468, 7-642, parcel 76435, and a small corner of 76443. And then in the Northfield, we'll call those Northfield alternatives that affect WB 3 and 4. Alternatives overlap 8-7-05889, 7-9637, 7-9538, and 7-9520. So those are the parcels that are affected. And once again, if we just look at acreages, our alternatives impact somewhere between a range of 4 to 15% of the total acreages that's being considered here for.
Thank you for the clarity.
Mr. Johnston.
Craig and Matt, thanks for coming tonight. This is a big issue for us up here in the city and in the wider county. So what I'd just like to hear, I'm curious as to if you can articulate what is how do I phrase this? Sorry. If the county moves forward in putting conservation easements on the Gertch parcels, does that hamper UDOT? And if so, to what extent from acquiring those parcels later, whether it be in a year or 5? Does it hamper you? Does it put a roadblock in? Does it cause legal issues? Does it increase the price? Does it extend the timeline? What are the implications of that? Because we would like to conserve these properties, but I'm not willing to spend millions of dollars to fund a roadblock to the bypass that's sorely needed by Heber City.
It does pose some challenges for us.
Are they overcomable, or are they significant, or are they, we'll just deal with that, no problem? Because you have to condemn this land, either friendly or adversarially.
And that's really our concern. We don't want to be at odds with the desires of the community. And so putting roadblocks, perceived or otherwise, could put UDOT in a position where we would be going against the intentions of the county or the city or the community in general by doing that. And that's a position we don't want to be in. We want to be working with the community, not against them.
I think we're really talking about one landowner, not the entire community right now. There's a landowner that's willing and wants to, for his own reasons, to put these conservations on, and they're willing funders to fund this. But there may, and I don't know them, but you should know them, I hope. Are there unintended consequences of doing that at this time, this month, next month? To put a conservation easement on property that you clearly see you need to cross Midway Lane. Well, let's just talk about the easy one. That would stop the bypass. There's no other way to move it We could take out the ball diamonds in Southfield Park. We could take out the new high school, but we're not going to do that, and you're not going to do it. So right now we have vacant hay land that you could buy. And we as a community, it's up to us to make sure that zoning stays ag, that we don't put a Flying J and a McDonald's on that intersection. That's up to us. And we can control that. And I'd love to put conservation easements all over wherever the bypass goes. But I just want to clearly understand what are the legal implications if we do this, if we put the conservation easement on these properties.
Those would pose a significant barrier to you.
A significant barrier.
And I'm not a legal expert either. I don't know to what extent that would be, but it would be a barrier to UDOT, and would send a mixed message to UDOT that the community is not fully supportive of the process we're in. We're not trying to indicate which alternative. We're just want to be able to move through and finish the study and the process.
If I
Thanks.
may, unless you're done, Mike. Are you done?
For now, yeah.
Okay. Um, I'd like to clarify just a few things that I think will help us focus. All right. First of all, whether you condemn this land or not, it doesn't matter whether there's a conservation easement on it or if there's not. You still would have to condemn it, just like he said. You would still have to go through the process. Okay. The conservation easement could go forward even without the county's say so, because it's a private landowner's decision. And that private landowner has funding now, matching funding that he's waited almost 3 years for, which is the usual amount of time. As you know, we've worked together on the Open Lands Board. It's the usual amount of time to get the federal funding or the state funding or private funding or whatever. So the conservation easement can go forward with or without the county, or with or without you, or with or without what anybody says, because it's a private landowner decision. Okay. And all of us, there's no one that would dispute, maybe just the truck drivers, but no one would dispute in this county that we would want diesels off Main Street. And that's what the original bypass route was designed to do, to get the diesels off Main Street. But through the years now that we've been trying to figure this out with you, you've told me very plainly that getting diesels off Main Street is a political decision, because as long as that pavement is strong enough for diesels, they can drive on it and we can't stop it. But we can't stop them anyway until Main Street becomes a city street and not US Highway 40. And that is a political decision that is not a part of your EIS. And it would happen after the bypass road could potentially be built. It's a political decision where we as a city or a county have to go to the state legislature and have to work it out, I assume, with the Federal Highway Administration to redesignate Main Street from, back to a city street, which I don't know when it ever changed, but to become a city street versus the new bypass road being the Highway 40. Okay, so we all know those things are just bottom line facts. And as much as we all want diesels off Main Street, we're not going to be able to do it legally, technically, until I hope, the original bypass road is built and whatever option fits into that original bypass road, 900 north down to Highway 189 and so forth, further south to catch on by the hospital. And then we have to have the political will, which I'm very certain that the city and the county will be totally united at that point to say, we want diesels off Main Street. We're going to do the political work we need to do to redesignate the new bypass road as Highway 40 so that the city can take over Main Street and then start to do whatever they need to do so that diesels will have the incentive to use, hopefully, the new bypass road. I just want to clarify that those things have to happen. Bypass is a political decision as much as you're going to, make your choice through the most technical, scientific way you can. But getting diesels off Main Street, which we all want, is political, and the community will be united to do that. I don't have any doubt of that. It's just that, like I say, conservation easements, private landowner decision, funding's available now. They can proceed with or without any of us. But they are going to ask the county for some matching funds to proceed. So I just wanted to make sure those were bottom line clarifications. As much as we're concerned and debate and wonder and if, how will it affect, we still can't stop private property owner decisions. Okay, now, Mike, I think you wanted to say something. You were
I
seeing
was
your
just going to
hand.
say that the issue here isn't the Summit Land Conservancy or Laren Gertz, it's whether the Wasatch County is going to decide to fund, I don't know how many millions, to Laren Gertz to do this. That's the decision. So you're right, Mayor. He can go out and he can do whatever he wants right now with it within the ag zone. He doesn't have to. If nothing happens now, it's still going to be ag.
Well, it's interesting that the conservation easement he's seeking, I think everybody has just said they want conservation easements around the bypass road, right? They want to keep it agricultural uses. And we know that this bypass road could be very disruptive to agricultural uses depending on the angle and the parcels and so forth. And can they use what's left when you come through? So what's the difference between condemning land that has a conservation easement or then putting the road in and trying to put conservation easements around it? I just think that it's the same goal at the end of the day, if you know what I'm saying. So you have to use eminent domain in either case.
I guess the difference there is, well, I don't know how to, I'm not sure how I would want to state this. Once again, I think it's our concern of wanting to work, be in step with the community. We know we can't control individual landowners. We're certainly
Right,
not.
right.
Not
None of us can. None of us can.
But we're trying to work together and support, what the community and the community leaders want, the county and the city. We're certainly not opposed to conservation easements. All we're asking is at least, to whatever actions that are in the, the ability of the county or the city, that the decision to, well,
Well,
that whatever that decision is, it'll have implications on.
Well, like I say, I believe the community is totally united to get diesels off Main Street. I have never heard anyone say, oh, please keep them there. I've never heard that, okay? Everyone's united on that fact. How we get them off, obviously, we're divided on. And I'm not trying to bring up a sore spot for you, but even when you made the announcement, UDOT has, not you, about the gondola, down in Salt Lake County, and boy, talk about debate. It kind of blows us out of the water, right? With the amount of debate and, differences of opinion with elected leaders down in Salt Lake County. Granted, there are 1 million plus people, but we're not. But I doubt you're going to get any agreement other than get diesels off Main Street at this point. And we are united on that. Now, how we do it is political. It's not going to be your choice, in this project, because we will have to do that political work once this project is hopefully built and decided, and hopefully we can even do it at the same time and do a switcheroonie by the time it's finished being built. That's political. It won't be in your EIS study or designation or alternative that you pick. Right. Anyway, go ahead, Aaron.
Just a thought. I mean, and I heard your words. Hopefully I restate them well, but it was something to the effect of if the county moved forward with these conservations, it would be taken as a sign that the community doesn't want or isn't united in their desires. To reword what the mayor's saying, I think the intent and the unity is there now. The reality is, or might be, and I don't really know, but the reality might be that the way that the funding has been sought and the way that the conservations have been sought, Mr. Gertz might have to think about all these at the same time, regardless of the fact that those 4 are clearly have lines in them at the bottom. I see other ways that those top ones could be bypassed. I'm looking at it and I can see other ways. So I can see another option there. I can't see another option at the bottom, like you said. So the question, I guess, and maybe it's what Mike was getting at, is there a way in which those 4 that are potentially impacted that are at the bottom could be conserved or could go forward with a conservation easement such that it doesn't block you and make it impassably difficult to put a road there with nothing else there, a road. And, I'm thinking like the highways in southern Florida where it's a highway and then it's just trees and grass. And it's just, frankly, they're beautiful. It's a highway still, don't get me wrong, but it's beautiful. The surroundings, there's all conserved. It's all Everglades, it's wonderful. Is there a way that that can be conserved, that this landowner could go forward without it coming across as the community isn't united in wanting a bypass? Because I don't think that's what anybody's telling you right now. So much as there's an opportunity for conservation, there's a landowner that's gone a long ways down this path and he may be running out of time.
Let me get to some of the questions that you were kind of answering in here, and one of the questions that I thought was really insightful was you asked a question about how the conservation movement were put in place with Legacy Highway. And I think that and that was a difficult process for UDOT at the time, and there was obviously there was a lawsuit and things going on there. But what was interesting about that is those conservation easements came about as part of the process. In other words, it came about because they were mitigation requirements, wetland mitigation requirements that the Corps of Engineers, had on UDOT because of the impact, because the wetland impacts that the project was affecting. And it came about, and those conversations happened while they were, the preferred alternative had been selected, and they acknowledged what the wetland impacts were, and they had conversations with the Corps of Engineers on what the mitigations would be, and that's how those conservation easements came about. It was done in process, and so looking back on that, where we are today, it's most people think that area is done pretty well in preserving that area. And so as difficult as we are right now in where we're at today, and in the situation we find ourselves in today, there is a way forward. In our view, there is a way forward, and that's staying with the process, and then working as forward to look at opportunities to as we try to mitigate wetlands or whatever, to move forward in conserving those easements.
Okay, Sid and then Yvonne, please.
I wanted to add to maybe clarify a little bit about what we would have to do if that was put into conservation.
And that's my question.
Yeah.
Let's say if it gets put into that conservation easement versus just normal land that you go, what is the process and what is the timing?
I'm not sure. In my almost 25 years at UDOT, and Craig's almost 30 years, I have not been involved with purchasing or going through condemnation and then compensating the owner for that property. So we definitely try to avoid it at all costs, just because there's some obviously legal implications to those conservation easements, why the federal government gave them that money to purchase it, and then we try to go buy it back. So I'm not sure how far it drags us down in the process.
And it would it's once again, we're at odds with the community desires to, why is UDOT now condemning property that was set aside for conservation?
Yeah, we can.
So, and that's not a position that UDOT would like to be.
Okay, so yeah, Sid and then Yvonne and then Matt, please.
Add that if, I'm just looking at the map here, saying that if the upper portions, those upper 3 or 4 parcels were put into conservation easement, and we had to try to avoid, we'd have to look at a different alignment, and then that causes us to have to go back and study all the wetland
Process
implications
over again.
look at and see.
Mhm.
And if we try to put in tighter curves to be able to not impact as many properties, well, then does that actually slow the traffic down and cause more problems there? So it cascades
Yep.
further and further behind. Plus, if you move that alignment on the kind of south of that 900 north road, or the blue lines, then you end up impacting a whole bunch of other property owners right there too. So it becomes just really,
and
that's why these things cost a lot of money to go through.
And just to kind of clarify that, these lines were set intentionally to avoid and minimize wetland impacts, which we have to do. It's
It's a
regulatory.
government.
It's regulatory. And
Mhm.
so the way, these weren't random. We don't have, if we were to move them, we would be impacting greater wetlands, and that's at issue there. We have to minimize impacts to wetlands. That's
It's just the process that you have to go through
that's
with the Army
regulatory.
Corps and all that. Yeah, your hands are tied.
Our hands are tied on that part of it.
Yep.
So
So,
that's part of the issue.
so again, my thing is, we've been going through this process. I've been here for 25 years. The bypass has been not as long as Yvonne, but yeah, I've been here a while and it's always been there. And of course, yeah, everybody wants the semis off Main Street. So the process is there. My point is we can't slow this process up. And it sounds like with doing this, it would slow the process up. But again, we need to preserve, I'm all for preserving the right land in the right places. But again, the process has been there. And if this comes to be, sounds like it's just going to keep on going and keep on going and keep on going. And I'm not for that. It needs to happen. So
Okay, Yvonne.
So here's a question, and I guess we've hashed over and over again, but this will help me understand some things, and this is more just a thought. We've already discussed that eminent domain, if you have a landowner who is, let's say, digging in their heels, and they've decided that there's no way that I'm going to allow this road to go through my property. And I think it's already been discussed as well that the landowner can decide to do whatever they choose to do going forward, regardless of whether the city or the county have have any discussion one way or the other. And we've discussed that there would be eminent domain. If there is eminent domain, why not eminent domain strictly for that portion that is needed at that area? Why not just eminent domain, just those parcels, just those pieces of the property, and continue to allow the easement around it? Why couldn't we? I mean, I feel like it's going to be a discussion one way or the other. If there's eminent domain involved, I know that it seems to UDOT that this is something that the community doesn't want. We do want it. I mean, for me, I say that blue line right there, that becomes our semi off our Main Street road. One way or another, we're getting a lot of traffic, whether it's semis, whether it's construction trucks. That blue line that's always been there from day one can still be utilized. And the only parcel of property we would need to be concerned about is that lower southern part. That means all of that northern part would be fine. If it's a discussion of a political discussion, well, we just want all traffic off of Main Street and forget that. We've talked about communities where they have the traffic on their Main Street. What they don't have is that semi-traffic. And so I say, if it's something that you're so bent on, and this is a political thing where we just want traffic off and we just want that north route because that's going to take us, I don't know, for the Olympics in the future or whatever it might be, well, then the eminent domain comes into play regardless. And if that's the case, let's do eminent domain just for those pieces where the road will go. However, if it's if it's just a matter then of semi-traffic, well, blue line becomes our semi-traffic and our large trucks. And we're solving the problem. It just depends on where UDOT wants to go. And what I'm saying is there's no roadblocks there. You're looking at a landowner who has wanted to do this for quite some time and now finally has the opportunity to do what he wants to leave as a legacy for his family and for generations down the road, because this has been property that he's had in his family since the pioneers. So that's an individual who has that right, okay? But at the same time too, if we're talking about just getting this traffic to calm down so that we still have opportunities, and it may not be exactly the way we want it, and it may still have traffic up at the top, we can adjust that in a different way, but we can at least get those semis gone and off the roads up to a certain point, and even maybe some other traffic. Here's your chance, take the blue line, get off our roads, and there's a smaller portion of property that might have to go through eminent domain. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So I'm hoping what I'm getting through is just do it one way or the other. One way or the other. Don't look at it as the community saying this. I keep hearing you say that. It's not the community. We all want the traffic gone to a certain extent. But what part of the political spectrum, if that's how you mean it, then I think we need to throw that out the window.
Certainly do not mean it in any kind of political way. That's definitely not my message. All we're saying is we need to, we're in the middle of a NEPA document, and there's a process there, and we need to follow that NEPA process. And we want to be able to do that in a way that doesn't compromise the NEPA process. That's all we're trying to do here. And part of that NEPA process says we have to consider different alternatives. And when we ran through the alternatives screening analysis and we went through that process, we settled in on these 5 alternatives. And they answered different parts of the purpose and need in different ways. And so all we're saying is we want to be able to finish the document and continue to follow our process. That's all we're really trying to say.
And maybe we should make a little more finer point of that, Craig. You have to follow the NEPA process to protect UDOT from lawsuits, given the amount of lawsuits that have happened in this whole state over these kinds of discussions, right? Right. And so for us to ask you to preempt and announce something or build something faster or do any of that, we are circumventing your process and we're opening you up to lawsuits, and we can't do that. Okay.
I guess just to clarify that, the yellow alternative is part of our original scope originally, right? That was a public comment to look at that, and that's part of the process. We have to consider what's brought up, and it wasn't just one comment or anything like that. So
Yeah, it was 70 out of the 600 public comments on that second round, as I recall. I was quite surprised that it made it through with just the 70 comments, but that's my opinion. Okay, Matt, and then Mike. Matt, you would wanted to say something.
Yes, Tony, can you do me a favor and bring up the materials that was in the agenda packet on this agenda item? Council, I want to take just 2 minutes and talk briefly about the points that you want to make to the county council tomorrow when you meet with them to discuss this very issue. Can you go to the second page, Tony? I took a liberty to itemize these bullet points here based on things I've heard you say in these meetings. Did I capture your intent correctly? Did I miss something? Are these the points that you want to make tomorrow when you meet with the county council? Looking to you for feedback because you will have a conversation tomorrow, and I want to make sure that you make the points that you want to make tomorrow.
I'm concerned about the defining the urban service boundary relative to the future bypass. I have never heard this said in a public meeting in this city council, but I've heard through the grapevine that some on the city council are very interested in annexing to the proposed bypass route that goes through the North Fields all the way up to River Road. And that would mean defining the urban service boundary clear to that northern route.
I've never heard that. What we talked about at the retreat in January was the urban service boundary that's to the west of the city between the current growth
That's what I'm
and
talking
the
about.
roadway.
Not to actually north of the city, but on the east side of that proposed route.
Yeah, in fact, Tony,
And
can you go there? We got a
that-
map of that.
That process would have to go through an annexation policy plan process update, a general
That's
plan update, all kinds of things, as well as I just don't even see how we can discuss that until we're ready to go through that process. But I guess no one's going to be ready to go through that process until UDOT picks.
Just remove that because it causes too much misinformation
Go
out
back to the
there.
list, Tony, if you would.
Unless you're clear about it, it's just the piece around the high school.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think there's some rumors out
It's
there.
all we've ever talked about.
Correct.
Maybe just figure out a way to say that differently. So
because I don't think that was
It's
the
very
intent. But
concerning. It's very concerning when it talks,
And
when you've got
honestly, I
so
don't
many
think,
big decisions that
sorry,
relate to that.
I'm not even sure any of us have thought about trying to annex to that bypass now that the high school and MTech is coming.
thought about preserving it. So
Right.
This is Scott.
again,
I've had my hand raised for a while. Can I
Right.
say
but
something?
That's,
to something. So, and
Um,
typically in development, everybody goes to those intersections because that's the high dollar. It's easy
yes.
to get in if you don't.
So
So
everyone, Scott Phillips is online. He's joined us now. Scott, go ahead.
I've never heard anybody talking about annexing up to that Northfields bypass road. All I've heard is that we are all concerned to preserve as much of the Northfields as possible, if not all of it. Um, I was the person who originally brought this forward. I mean, what my concern was that the Open Lands Board, decided to do this without really consulting with the entities. We didn't have any idea this was coming forward. I learned about it just reading KPCW one morning and called Matt and said, "Is this kind of like a slap in the face to UDOT and their process?" You know, I personally don't think it's about the trucks. I think it's about the traffic. The traffic through Heber Valley is going to get worse and worse and worse. And UDOT is the professional. They are our road doctor, is what I'd like to say. That they analyze all of the symptoms. They take all the tests. They have experience throughout the state of Utah with roads that fail and growth and what's coming. And for us not to just take the time to let them have their process and to listen to what they're telling us. There's no politician who is a road builder that I know of currently. There's no one here that's building roads or highways or understands that. Maybe, Mike probably understands better than all of us because he's an engineer. But our roads are failing, and whatever recommendation they make is going to be the best recommendation for our valley. And we as politicians have to get off of the high horse of this and that and what is in the best interest of our valley long term. This happened 20 years ago where UDOT had the funding and had the approval to build the bypass around Heber, and the city council basically said no, we don't want to do that. And I don't want that to happen again. I want the county and us to work together to make a good solution because Heber City residents are the majority of county residents, it seems like in the county. I mean, there's more now up in Hideout and things, but I just want to put a message out there, a unified message that we are willing to allow UDOT to do their process, that we are willing to allow or we are wanting to preserve as much of the Northfields as possible, but we don't want to put any stumbling blocks in the way of that, especially this late in the game. We've had 2 elections in the process of this happening. Well, I'd say 3 elections with the bypass, and anyone who was against the bypass, like if that was their main thing, lost in those elections horribly. Everybody who's won in the elections has been pro bypass. And I think that people have spoken pretty loud and clear that they want a bypass, and that's the people's will. Now, we as the politicians always talk about wanting to do the people's will. Well, I mean, we need to get this bypass road done, and the best way to do that is to let UDOT finish their process. So
Mr. Hank,
go ahead.
oh, I was just going to remind Mr. Hancock, remember when you came to the Open Lands Board meeting? Has it
Oh, wait, I
been,
wasn't done yet. I thought you were asking me a question.
did you have a question?
No, I thought you had a question for me. I was still talking.
No, go ahead.
Um, UDOT has the process. They're the road doctor. They're going to take all the symptoms, let us know what is best for our community. I mean, the MIDA project is going to bring a ton of traffic. All the homes that are being built on the east north side of town are going to bring a lot of traffic. New stoplights, dropping the speed limit to 35 miles an hour from here to River Road. If things would remain the same, that's the only lens that we seem to be looking at this through, but things are changing constantly. And to have some sort of forward vision and say, all our road is going to fail, and just saying, if you're going to be in traffic, at least there's something pretty to look at, just isn't enough for most people. When they're sitting there and having to wait 50 minutes to get to Park City, they're going to be awfully mad. So thank you, UDOT, for all you're doing. We don't want to have any roadblocks in the way of what you're doing. We want to be cooperative partners, good partners, and let you finish your process. Thank you.
So I just want everyone to know that the Open Lands Board has invited Mr. Hancock to come, and they've made their presentations well over a year ago. I think it was a year and a half ago easily. And the county's been in contact with you. Obviously, you meet with them, and also shared the maps with you of the pending conservation easements as well as the ag protection areas that they've approved. So nothing has been hidden from you on this. And we've certainly tried to collaborate as best as we can, given what private property landowners have wanted to do. We appreciate it too.
I know we traded that back and forth on information, and
Yes.
we appreciate that.
Yes, so we certainly, I don't think this was too big of a surprise for you, given that you knew that it was already on those maps and on those pending easement applications that we've had. Well, we've had this one since April 21, well before the 13 routes you announced in October of 21. But you were still working on it then, right? But just no one knew that, you were what routes you were going to propose at that time. Okay, everybody, we're hopeful that we can wrap this up and move on with the other agenda items. So can you just finish up here, please, Mike?
I think I can. Can you go back, Tony, to the UDOT map? I heard some good, I wrote down 3 things that I heard, and I think they're important. I think we all do want conservation in the North Fields, but I don't think it's, the only real thing we're talking about is what should Heber City recommend as an affected entity to the Wasatch County Council. They are, the Wasatch Open Lands Board has made a recommendation to spend, I'm going to guess, I don't know, was it $3 million?
It's 2.25 million.
$2.2 million to Mr. Gertz, who has kindly offered to put all this in conservation easement, and there's significant matching funds, and he's making a donation of land value. That's all well and good, but I do not think we should be doing things that affect where that blue and yellow line go. There's a lot of property that could still go into conservation easements, and then we'll let UDOT finish their process. You don't have any problem with something that doesn't touch those lines, right? I think it's a great idea. Let's get it. We want to do it. We might as well do it now, because you're not moving this. If you were to move these lines, you'll have to go through a whole new NEPA process. So here's 2 or 3 more years. That's what I heard you say. It would be significant barriers to UDOT if you had to start over, if you had to move these lines, and it would be difficult to go against what the community is saying by us putting our $2.2 million as a roadblock in front of you. So that's what I heard. I'd be happy to move forward and preserve everything that's not in that corridor, and then we'll see where it goes.
Well, the Open Lands Board and the County Council have been very specific that the Open Lands Board and the county cannot target any landowner and cannot force any landowner. So as much as we want to do as much as we can on this, it has to be a willing landowner, and it usually takes some time for them to get through that process and work through their family dynamics. And so when they're ready, and when the federal money's ready and the state money's ready, that's really a major accomplishment for the landowner. There are so many details to work out with conservation easements. Anyway, we really appreciate your time. Matt, did you want to finish saying something?
Since I am a resident and I'm pretty close to the southern bypass part where I live, and I've tried to kind of just let the process play out because I've seen the process many times. And we always try to come down to the least damaging practical alternative. And not everybody's going to be happy with it, but it's going to be the one that provides the solution for the needs of the community, and then also affects the least amount of people. It's not saying that nobody's going to get affected, because somebody is. And, it's going to affect my access to things, and because it affects Southfield Road, but that's just the way it is. But I trust the process. And so if anybody's thinking that, UDOT's picking this or that, that's not the case. It's the process, and we have to follow it because it's the law. And we have to follow the law so that we don't get in trouble and start delaying the project. We don't start paying money and delays and things like that. So we're just following the process, following the data, and yeah, it's going to be wherever it ends up. And so I just wanted to kind of show that we're not being partial to anything.
Well, we appreciate that. You guys have figured out your processes long ago to follow the laws, and you can't preempt it, and we can't preempt you either on the process, and we can't be trying to force things by trying to make things whatever we can at this point when you've got to still go through that. Okay, well, thank you again for your time. And we do appreciate all of your work to go through the process, because we really do want diesels off Main Street. We really do want, I do want the original bypass route. I've always said that. Everybody has their opinion, obviously, here. But we want to support you. We want to support you. I want to support you on that original bypass route. And we do look forward to working with you more in the future for that. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. All right, everyone, we're going to go on to the second agenda item. We're going to discuss hangar term sheet or approval of a new master lease or an amendment at the Heber Airport for aeronautical activity. We have Jason Talley on the line. Jason, you're welcome to come off mute. Kurt, you are here. Kurt Costanga's here from Aeroplex, one of our airport consultants. Kurt, you're able to come off mute also and speak. Kurt, can I turn it over to you?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Pleasure to be here with you all tonight, and pleasure to provide the staff report. I'm excited to say that this, following the last agenda item, I'm pleased to say, I never thought I'd say this, but it's glad to see we have an airport item that I think you're all going to be excited about. So on behalf of Jason
Nice.
Talley,
Nice.
Jason Talley, on behalf of Edgewood Capital LLC, he's the master leaseholder at the airport there, and he's requested authorization for a modification to his existing ground lease, just adjacent to his site, contiguous to his site, which is a vacant parcel now, and consistent with the terms of the existing lease. And in exchange for a minimum investment of about $600,000, he'd like to make this modification to the lease, and I'm sure Jason will provide his feedback, but he's looking to expand his hangar there for some new services that he wants to bring. And so working with city staff on this report and on this item, they're asking the council here to approve an amendment to the master lease in giving the authority to the city manager to authorize the amendment, subject to the letter of intent that was signed by both parties, and a modification to the lease that would be drafted by the city attorney. Again, Edgewood is a current master leaseholder. Their parcel there is in the Horseshoe Hangar area. His hangar is number 6B. He's got approximately 14 years remaining on the existing lease, but he does have some options, his own options, to extend an additional 10 years. So he has 24 years remaining, and he's not seeking an additional time on the lease. He's just seeking to add to the area, pad area K, that's shown here in the exhibit. The vacant parcel is circled there, and some of the adjacent area in that area around that site that's vacant, which our recommendation would be to work with the airport's engineer to survey the area to actually capture the exact square footage of the land that he would then add to his lease and pay additional rent to the airport. And so there would be some additional income coming to the airport for this project. The services that he's looking to provide would be to construct an additional hangar to support electric and light aircraft assembly and the delivery of those aircraft. And these are non-FBO related services. And where I was jokingly saying it's exciting to see this, it is really exciting to see this. As the airport's gone through a lot of discussions over the last few years, and to be talking about diverse general aviation uses for a based operation with electric aircraft is the exact kind of technology and services that I think the community there would like to see brought to protect the airport for its for the future and providing diverse general aviation services. Going through the staff report here a little bit more, the deal does increase the revenue to the airport in the form of new land rent, new sales and property tax revenue that would come through Jason's operations. Again, diverse uses, additional jobs. And he is currently paying, as you know, with the permit that was issued by the council some time back, 1% of gross revenues on his sales, and he just did recently make payment on that to the airport, in addition to the land rent that he would be paying. Just to conclude here, and happy to answer any questions from our perspective, I think this deal exemplifies the opportunity presented to Heber with its airport in the passing of the master plan. It encourages new healthy development, new revenues, and protects the airport with diverse uses. And so with that, I'll stop. And if there's any questions, but maybe you'd want to hear from Jason first.
Yes, please go ahead, Jason. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry I can't be there in person today. I unfortunately had a conflict that I could not avoid. Um, I think Hurt summed up our uses fairly well. One of the things that I'm hoping that I'm doing by this application to the city is looking at taking vacant land and producing that or turning that into something that's revenue producing for the airport to help support the airport operations, as well as providing something that's beneficial to the community. Whether that's through exposing our youth and STEM activities to, kind of a new up and coming type of aircraft, which is light aircraft and electric aircraft, or providing opportunities for those in the community to be able to learn and work on those, the assembly of those aircraft. I think it's something that's really exciting. And I thank the council for allowing me to pursue that last fall. I didn't anticipate that it would be as successful as it has been. And so, I'd like to be able to expand that at Heber instead of having to look someplace else. The Heber is my home, and I love what the community offers. So, a couple of things, that I think are important that I wanted to address. First of all, on the letter of intent, Madam Mayor, you'll notice that I specifically put in there the right of vehicles to pass over the apron and the taxiways that are in front of this. I know that was something that you brought up
Yes, thank
during
you.
the T
Thank you.
hangar complex. No, I thought it was important. Secondly, time is somewhat of the essence on this because of the T hangar complex that's going in. Utilities are going to have to be moved for that project, and I want to make sure that they don't go across where we would potentially be building, as well as trying to align with the taxiway and the elevations. And the last thing is, Councilmember Barney, I know back this fall you expressed some concern or request for me to speak with the Heber Power about the type of electricity and the consumption it would be using. And obviously, if this is approved, we'd be working with the Heber Power and Light to make sure that anything that we did was consistent with what they thought the capabilities and the grid out there at the airport would be able to support. So
That,
Thank you.
that is really excellent, Jason. I just have a really quick question. Do you know what level of charger you would need out there, just for my
yes,
information?
yes. So the level of charging there, and we actually have the chargers that we'll use. We can't use three-phase charging at the airport, to my understanding. So it's a level 2 charger. I think it
Okay,
does. I think
okay.
it's like 16 kilowatt hours. So it's
Yeah,
actually smaller than a car charger.
yeah, that's fine. Level 2 is fine. I just was wondering if you wanted a supercharger out there, and then we'd really have to talk with Heber Light and Power. But level 2 will be, I'm sure that will work well. We are adjusting some policies on those very charging instruments, I guess you'd say, or stations. with Heber Light and Power, so we'll definitely want to be in touch with you about that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions that I can answer?
Jason, thank you so much for also agreeing to give the 1% gross of your yearly revenues, back to the airport. That's something that we've wanted in the commercial leases and had it as a standard for quite some time. So thank you for that. Is it possible for us to also include it on the term sheet so that that can be finalized to include that 1%
So
gross revenues?
it is actually included on the term sheet. If you'll look on there, and I don't have it in front of me because I'm looking at the council chambers right now, but I believe it is on there, that the 1% would be paid consistent with the rates and fees of the airport.
Okay, I did see that part. Yeah, that you would be, you're willing to do the adjustment to the current market rates, the fees
Yes.
process, rent to adjust with the Mountain Land CPI, the base rents to be adjusted. I just didn't see the 1% gross revenues that we've wanted for all SASOs out there. So I was just hoping we could add that in to that base
I think
rent idea or the taxes. Go ahead, Kurt.
If I may, Madam Mayor, the 1% fee there is part of the rates and fees studies that were underway that we hope to come back to the council soon.
Okay.
We're studying that to make sure that we're consistent through all the airport users and not creating a situation where there'd be uses that might be considered discriminatory. So it's just something that we're under review. But again, Jason has paid it, and it would be incorporated into agreements like this one moving forward through the rates and fees process.
That's good. I really appreciate that. That's great. But I just wanted to verify with Jason if he was good that it was added to the term sheet.
No, I think as long as it's consistent with the rates and fees that we have there, I think I've made the statement publicly multiple times that I think it's important for the airport to be self-sufficient, and this is a way for airport users to be able to contribute to that. So.
Okay. Well, we do hope that your gross revenues will be fantastic. This is a really exciting, field that you're in. Totally cutting edge. Very, very exciting. Thank you for bringing it to Heber's Valley Airport. So, Council, let me ask you now: are you interested in a new master lease or an amendment to his current lease? Any comments or questions on that, Council? Or any motions?
Aren't we discussing a temporary commercial activity permit?
No, that was last year, and now he's looking for a new master lease, 25-year lease, or an amendment to the.
What would be appropriate?
Jeremy, do you want to weigh in?
So there's no request for an extension of time. He has a current lease of 24
Yes.
years remaining that he'd like to make an additional $600,000 investment to acquire the adjacent land next to his space.
So he's looking also for rental of a pad rental. And then Jeremy, we're going to turn it over to Jeremy Cook.
I was going to say, when I pulled that up in Civic Clerk, I got the old staff report, but there's an updated new staff report as well. I think it depended on how you pulled it up.
Yeah, mine says October 3rd.
That's from.
That's the old one.
That's the old one.
Oh.
Yeah, so to be clear, the commercial permit or the temporary commercial permit was approved last fall, which is what we just made the gross revenue payment on. And this is to take my existing lease and add space, leased property to that. We have 24 years effectively remaining on our current lease. I'm willing to amend that, or we could do a new lease. Honestly, for me, an amendment's easier than a new lease because it's less paperwork, but I'll leave that to the discretion of the attorneys.
Okay, so does he have a current private hangar lease with just a temporary permit? Is that what he has right now?
He has a long-term.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kurt.
He has a
Yeah.
long-term lease for the occupancy of the hangar with a temporary commercial use permit for
Okay.
the sales and delivery of these electric
Okay.
aircraft.
So he has the private hangar lease. He wants a second private hangar lease for the second pad. And then we have to decide, and which obviously we don't have to approve. But then he wants either an amendment to his current private hangar lease, or he wants a new master lease that would be more the commercial lease, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
I think that's right. That's how I understand it.
Okay, so council, you've got a choice. We have a really strong private hangar lease, which he has right now. It's very strong. We also have Peter Kirsch's commercial hangar lease, which also has other ideas on it, which is again, very strong. And it's your choice whether you want to amend the private hangar lease that he has to allow this commercial activity. But the second pad is already taken care of through Travis and the AAB. That's not our issue, right? It's whether or not we give him the new commercial lease or we amend the private hangar lease. I would suggest do the new commercial lease because we want to keep commercial commercial and we want to keep private private. But that's my recommendation. So council, questions, comments, motions?
And Madam Mayor, if I may, just for a moment, I'm sorry.
Yes.
If you decide to go down a new commercial lease, we just ask that the council approve holistically all of the site that we're looking at here within that motion, so that I can begin to incur the expenses and work with the T hangar developer as well as the engineers, immediately, because time is of the essence. So that would be my request. And we're ambiguous,
Good.
or thank
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you, Jason. We're not trying to torture you here. So Aaron?
I think I would be more in favor of the new lease, just to your point, to keep commercial separate, with the same terms as was in the staff report in October, the October 3rd. Specifically, the very bottom part of this, where it says fiscal impact, that's potentially where you're getting your 1% guaranteed there. If we say that it's a lease with the same terms, which is that as part of the consolidated fee schedule, applicant will pay an annual fee of 1% of annual gross revenues payable on March 1st and within 60 days of expiration. So that could be, we've already done it. We could say that the exact same terms would apply to a new commercial. I think the rest of what's on here on the term sheet makes great sense. I mean, Jason, I appreciate you taking my phone call and answering the questions I had outside the meeting to clarify things. But council, I think, there's an opportunity here that is somewhat unique in that Jason's willing to pay all of the things we've asked him to pay, take on all of the costs, take on the utilities, no matter how the utilities end up coming, whether that's for an additional service or not. And he just wants to move forward now so that he doesn't have to potentially dig things back up and move utilities or be blocked from changing this. I'm really excited that it's been such a successful venture and he wants to do more of it here.
Now, do you want to make that a motion, by the way?
Is there any other council that wants to say something? Matt or Mike, you can forward. Sure. So that I think is number 1, right? Alternative 1. Yes. So, okay. So yeah, I would say I move to authorize city manager to execute a new master lease for aeronautical activity as presented with the findings and conditions as presented in the conclusion above and with the additional statement or obligation as modeled in the October 3rd agreement for the prior conditional use, which stated that the that the 1% of gross revenues would be paid, or and I'll leave this open for amendment, but or could go up as a consolidated fee schedule potentially raises that percentage in the future.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. Let Sid second.
Okay, I'll go with Sid there. You guys are good. Any further discussion? Jason, Kurt, are you good?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, very good. And is there anything else we've missed? Okay, seeing none, we'll take the vote, please, on this end.
Yes.
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 Okay. Oh, Scott, are you online to vote? Okay, he's off. So that passes 4-0 with 1 excused. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jason. Again, good luck. This is
Thank
very
you.
exciting. And thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we're on to our next agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well, thank you. We're going to try to go as quick as you can, Chief.
Sure thing,
On,
as presented.
yes. Uh,
That's as fast as I could go.
Just, yeah, well, you don't have to run, but this is a proposal now, everyone, for something that could go into effect next year. It's to discuss the animal control or animal services proposed memo of understanding with the county, with Midway, with Hideout, with Interlochen.
Yeah,
And I'll turn it over to you, Chief.
actually this year, we were hoping this goes into effect by July 1st at the start of the new fiscal year.
Well, yeah, but we can always push it to the next July too.
Good. Yeah.
It depends on the
Yeah,
feedback.
we've, this is the current, I just want to show you the current makeup of the animal control organization right now. We receive input from these entities, Interlaken, Wasatch County, Heber City, Midway City Hideout. We receive that to the Hanford Police Department, and then we're responsible for the operational, day-to-day operations of animal control throughout the entire county. If you go to the next slide. Some of the current issues we have is that there's been no interlocal agreement between Heber City and the other entities for at least 10 plus years. I actually happened to find a file in my thing, and it was the last agreement that I could find was 1999. So it's been almost 25 years since we've had an agreement with these other entities. Heber City is servicing the entire county. We provide shelter, adoption, licensing, and we also respond to all the animal incidents. We receive very little involvement from the other entities who are being provided services, which sometimes that's good for us because we don't have to receive input, but it's bad for them because then they feel like a stepchild and they feel like they don't have any input in the services that they're providing to their communities. And then there's no definitive way of doing business with the entities that are being serviced. Our goals in doing this MOU is to provide a better collaboration between all the entities involved, provide a clear structure for current and future needs, allow all the entities involved to collaborate on current policing strategies, expectations, budget, and future delivery needs, and provide better transparency for all the entities involved. Some of the MOU highlights that it does is it provides a direct voice on services and budget for each entity. It provides a framework for all the entities to move forward together towards future needs, expansion, and service priorities. It provides a framework to move forward in different ways, such as if we do interlocal agreements or seek taxes for it. Regular board meetings will ensure that we are prepared for the future. Needs such as building expansion. As we know, 97% of pet owners view their animals as members of their family. And this expectation is not cheap for us to do. And it requires us to continue to improve our services. People don't want their dogs just locked up. They want their dogs to have an interactive experience while they're at our shelter. And it establishes an animal services board. Now, each entity will consider and adopt a proposed budget each year. Each entity
goods off, on and off that train. So long with goods being distributed was kind of why we came up with the corridor for that. Platform is also one of those areas where you would pull the train up and you would have loading on and off. And the band shell happens to have a nice big flat area. So along that theme, it seemed logical.
Well, the platforms in history used to be where the politicians would stand up and talk to people, and where the little bands would stand. I mean, it actually was this. That's my favorite of all of them.
So
Not the politician part, but
we're just problem solving as we go up. And if I provide advice from a marketing standpoint to council, it's stay within the theme and try and operate within those constraints. I don't think that we're trying to brand the whole Heber Valley on this one. You know, we've talked a lot about, as the bids come in, we'll probably go more public with it, but this columbarium project, which we have a total different theme that we've been discussing for that. I think the Arts District will have its theme. I think that we have opportunities for downtown C3. I think that a dedicated theme along this historic concept of our railroad commerce makes sense.
So then why not Heber Town Square? I mean, it has a cliche, you know, that's what I'm thinking is that
Central Park
I just
idea.
feel like if we move so
then
far
people
in
go,
one
"Ooh, they
direction
have a
or the
Central
other,
Park."
but Heber Town Square, this is the Heber Town area, old Heber Town. I mean, you can even call it old Heber Town Square or whatever. I'm just thinking it doesn't need to be anything like Hatch Square. Well, I like Hatch Alleyway or Hatch Road, but Hatch Street, excuse me. But Hatch Square, again, we're getting into where we're tightening ourselves in. But this is Heber. This is the Heber Valley. This is Heber City. This is our area. So why not Heber Town Square? This all used to be the Heber Town proper through here. So that's it.
and Heber Town Square sounds great. Just get rid of town.
I'm just leaving it there. And just remember, you guys, I'm always right. No.
I would really like to get Diane's view on this. Come here, Diane, come on up. Because Diane, you're hearing us talk about renaming all these things and take a minute.
In the park. I thought that we were going to get a bandstand
Yes.
that has a funny roof that you're
Mhm.
going to have to get up and shovel the snow. You know, it needs to just be, I don't know who
You-
did
do you
that
wanna-
one,
who
but
can
I
pull
saw
that
that you
up?
had you got a depot there. That's not fair to all the other businesses in this town. That you're coming to our town and, oh, why don't you go to the train? You know, there's lots more businesses than just the depot. And to me, that's showing favoritism. And you're putting a great big building in the back of the park to shuffle people down to ride the train. You're taking our park away from us and giving it to the businesses to make money.
That is what many consultants have said, Diane, actually, to
But just show
monetize
me
the
the
park.
park and tell me what these buildings are. Because I know that that is going to be the depot. The other one's going to be,
So the band shells on this side.
Right.
There's that depot area is down at the south end.
pretty much takes up the whole area.
And then there would be a new kind of pavilion or some kind of retail on the corner there, that southwest corner. The playground stays the same,
Where's the playground?
right there. Main Street's here on the
I'm
bottom.
sorry, I didn't wear my glasses. Tell me right, left, or top, bottom. I can't see.
Bottom left. Green circle.
Cross. There's the
Playground.
Okay,
Anna.
okay.
This is that depot, this is the other building,
And what's going to happen in that building?
this is retail.
Retail.
It's
Supposedly
suggested. We don't
And
have to.
you have to realize this is very conceptual.
Yes.
Yeah, and
But it is, this was the Heber City Park.
well,
It
what
no
it was
longer
before.
is Heber City Residences Park.
Yeah,
It now belongs to business and retail for them to make money on people coming to Heber. You've taken the park away from Heber.
Okay.
But you do have
was it the high
property that you
school
can make
before
it
that?
work.
I think that's.
You know,
where
I know a
high
good
school was.
guy that you could see for property.
Can I ask too if you like any of the suggested names?
Yes, Heber Town Square. I think the others are, and the sheep, I'm sure you've researched about the sheep. They didn't go down and, anyway, it was a big business here, but it wasn't the only business. And I just, that one creeped up on me. thought I was keeping up and I'd never seen this before. And basically, it's no longer Heber City Citizens Park. You're making a park for the people who are coming here that want to see Heber and spend money, right?
No.
No.
No, the only thing that's doing that might
What
be
did
the
I get
depot.
wrong in that concept?
So
Yeah, no, I want him.
I think you need to come to when Roger Brooks presents and understand what is going on. So this is our, what does he call it?
Living room.
Living room. This is where locals go. Yeah, there's going to be tourists that come here, which is great because we want that intermix and we want their money, right? But this will be based for the locals, for people like me that have a family and grandkids, that I can get on my bike, ride down here. My grandkids can go and play in the park, water feature, whatever, go get ice cream, and it's geared for that. Yes.
I can see that that's there too, but it seems like a little bit of an overload for commerce.
I would recommend you come.
Thank you, Diane. We appreciate that. We appreciate your insight because you are seeing also what consultants have said, even though it goes both ways. Okay, Ryan, do you think we can come back to this discussion? How would you like us to go forward at this point?
Absolutely. I think that we've made some progress tonight. If I could just, if we had one takeaway, I let's focus on the theme before we focus on the names and come to agreement there. And then I think the naming will be easier. But if I've impressed that we're not trying to create this big identity piece, this is zone C3 park. Let's focus in on it. And from that marketing standpoint, something that is sellable to our local citizens as well. If we want that destination feel to it, we need to pick a theme.
Oh, like a
And
Heber Old Town District, is that what you mean?
Again, I'm going to allow council to try and explore. I'm trying to tee this thing up and give you guys a softball pitch.
your
And I ultimately
recommendation,
think it comes down to your decision. It's your naming right. But in guiding the process, I just want to make sure we're focused and I'm helping you guys to come to the smartest decision that we can as a community.
But your recommendation of, as far as naming the individual parts and then referencing them as part of a more generic square doesn't fly. That's not, you want us to go
No, I
more.
think Heber Town Square, I think, has a nice ring to it.
Okay.
Although
To name the park.
although I would say, just being one of the new guys here, is when I think of town square, I think of this block.
So that's what I want to say too in just a minute.
Okay, let's try to
Well,
wrap this up.
I mean, go back to Plaza then. I mean, because I love the idea of like the concert is at the platform at Heber Plaza.
I got
you know.
30 seconds just to add in.
Okay, go for it. I'm good.
Go ahead, Mike.
I really appreciate what you've done, and it's really caused us to think. I have two things. One, it needs to be authentic, and I do think the train is authentic. Two, it needs to, I think we all have kind of said this, and Diane said it too, it needs to be locals focused. I am somewhat reticent about having this depot at the south end of the park. We can talk about that later, but I do think a train is an authentic theme. I definitely, my creativity only goes so far, but I have been around the world and this country. I want to use the word square for this square and for that square because they are squares. And every town since Boston has had a square. And I do think this is our central square or our town square is right where we're sitting. And it is historic and it's surrounded by more historic. The very few historic buildings we have that are of substance are here on this square. And I see that more as our park square. So I don't want to mix up town square with what I think is right here. And then the last thing I'll say is, I don't think this connecting is really a street. In my opinion, it's an alley. And I think we should give it an authentic name, a local authentic name. I don't want to come up with something fabricated like Disneyland. So I like going back to history for this alley. I think it's an alley. Maybe it's West Alley or something. And I had one more thought and I said, I can't remember it. But there you go.
I do like calling it a square over just City Park. I think that City Park is anywhere USA, and once we declare it a square, which it is a square,
Yeah.
it has a nicer
It's
ring.
authentically a square.
And did you want to say anything about the platform?
Um, Again, that's not so important to me, the platform. I think we got to focus what it is, which is it's either music or it's, maybe it's called the music platform or I don't like Rendezvous though, by the way. It's too Western. And I don't think we're Western. We're not cowboy.
It's Mountain Man.
We're not mountain man here. So I do like sheep.
Is it okay, everybody, if we could adjourn? Or do you want to
I
continue
do
this
have just a couple
discussion?
items, Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Get enough, Ryan.
Yeah, I think
Or is it still out
The
there?
unending debate.
It is for me.
We're kind of ending it out there. I would love to hear council say, here's a theme, and then maybe I could go back to the drawing board and come up with some more names. But
What I'll do, if it's okay with council, I'll circulate some of these imagery from different projects that I've been a part of and give you the names. So then you can start,
'cause it's narrowing it down. It's creating constraints so that we have a logical progression to where we're going. And if the takeaway from this is council decides on a theme, then I think it's a big win.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mayor.
Ryan.
4 items really quick. So recall tomorrow, you are intending to have a meeting with the Wasatch County Council. The first item that will be discussed is regarding a formal pitch to Wasatch County Council regarding the CRA, the interlocal agreement. I sent everyone a copy of the presentation that Mike is anticipated to give. I also made a couple changes I sent out yesterday. The main notion I want to make sure you're aware of is to have perhaps 2 committees that would provide feedback to the agency board, which is you. One of the committees would be focused on the Arts Recreation District, and the other one would be focused on the downtown area. And I want you to know that we've got in here a detailed cost estimate. That's what we've heard from the county, is we want to know where you're spending that money. As I've got as good as I can based on what I've heard you talk about. And so Mike's going to pitch this tomorrow. We'll try to fill the room with business owners and property owners to show support for this policy decision. So that's the first one. The second issue you're going to talk about is what we began today's conversation with, which is the North Fields and the easements. I'm told by Dustin that will take place at their 6 o'clock meeting. It'll be at the very beginning. And that'll probably be more of a conversation between you and the county council. I'm not sure if there's any agenda for that or any script, as opposed just to talk and have a conversation. So we'll kind of see where that takes us. That's the first item. Any questions regarding the presentation or the conversations with the county council, Mayor?
I did wonder if they were going to get to their RFP. And I think they're more interested in their RFP than maybe the corridor discussion. You know what I'm saying? I think they want to make sure they get to their RFP, which was going to be after the corridor discussion. So is that what you're hearing?
No,
Since
I
this
asked,
corridor discussion, they're going to postpone it till 6 when the public hearing is?
I'm not sure what the thinking is, but I had not text, but emailed Dustin. I said, make sure that the CRA discussion is first. He says it's like number 3 at the 4 o'clock meeting, but it'll be almost about 10 after, 15 after. And then he said that the discussion regarding the corridor is going to be perhaps around 6 o'clock. So just a heads up on that.
Okay.
So I can't read into it any more than that.
Like I say, it just surprised me that they might switch things around on us. You never know.
They could.
Because I just
They
think
could.
that they want that RFP, but
They could.
anyway.
Yes, please be there by 4. Mike, do you have everything you need regarding the presentation tomorrow?
As long as they have it, right? They're going to put it up.
They have a PDF, and I'm going to bring a PowerPoint that will plug in. That will,
Bring a computer.
you don't have to bring anything. We got taken care of for you. Yep. Second thing is Utah League of Cities and Towns Annual Conference, 3rd week in April. Mayor, I know you're going. We talked about it. Was anyone else anticipating attending that conference? Oh, great. Excellent. Have you got your hotels? Have you got all your accommodations?
I got our hotels.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. Okay.
Trina did all the work.
Love it.
We just threw the money.
Love
in.
it.
Take it.
She does all my work too, by the way. So 2 more quick things. You're aware that Roger Brooks is in town. The Heber Valley Tourism and Economic Development has him under contract to do 4 things really for us. The first is to design the park in a way where it could support 250 days of activities a year, number 1. Number two is to develop a pro forma, a program for making that happen. In other words, a budget, revenues, expenditures, who's going to do it.
Semi-discussed today.
A little bit. Third is he's going to look at our parking policy for the downtown and make some recommendations and suggestions regarding it. And number four is to look at the business mix in the downtown, making sure that we are getting the mix of businesses we need, making sure we meet his 10-10-10 rule, which is 10 restaurants, 10 retail, and 10 of them open after 6 o'clock. He's going to talk about that, how we can achieve that. He's said today it's going to take about 5 or 6 months to complete everything. And so we'll get back to you as we learn more and the committee gives more input to Roger through this process. And then lastly is I just want to make sure you're aware that staff is working on an event in May to rededicate this building. We don't got a date yet, but with the rehab of the tower, we're going to be repainting the windowsills and the trim here. We thought it would be a great opportunity to do a rededication, a special event to create interest and excitement and momentum again in the downtown. And so we'll get more information to you as we finalize those details. Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
One quick question.
Sure.
Matt, with the CRA discussion tomorrow, is there anticipated any questions specific to the school district? Because I know that was the other part, right? So do we have some work there still to do?
Yes, and that is likely to came up. It came up last time I met with them.
Gentlemen, please, go ahead, Aaron.
Yes, that's likely to come up. Behind the scenes, I've been trying to press Paul to give me a firm date that you can go before his school board. I've not got that yet, but our answer if that comes up is yes, we are working with Paul to set that date to meet with that board to have the same discussion.
Do you need our help to get that moving faster? There are two people on the board that seem to communicate better than others, and I'd be happy to talk to
Let me
them.
finish my work with Paul. I think he's honest and sincere with me. Let me see if he will follow through with that commitment. If not, I will be making phone calls to you to help me out there.
Okay, anything else, Sid?
Nope. I'm
All right,
good,
is
Mayor.
there a motion to adjourn perhaps?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That passes 4-0 with one excuse.
Yes,
Yep.
Brain hiccup there.
Please, please.